ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar, my dear friends. I am making this video on spiritual instruction of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. This is a very small work but most essential and beneficial for the spiritual sadhakas who are undergoing the practice of self-inquiry leading to self-realization and finally achieving liberation. These spiritual instructions must be clearly understood by each and every spiritual sadhaka to make his sadhana successful, easy, and follow these instructions for the same. Importance of the work. Worshipping with the instruments of thought, word and body, the sacred lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi, the very embodiment of the beginningless, infinite Supreme Brahma, the Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. I have gathered this bouquet of the flowers of his instructions, Upadesa Manjari. Upadesa Manjari was a work in Tamil, and this is translation of the same Upadesa Manjari for the benefit of those who are foremost among the seekers of liberation and who are adored by learned persons in order that they might adorn themselves with it and attain salvation. This book is an epitome of the immortal words of that great soul, Sri Ramana Maharshi, whose teachings entirely dispelled the doubts and wrong notions of this humble person, even as the sun dispels darkness. The subject of this book is that eternal Brahma, which shines as the pinnacle and heart of all the Vedas and Agamas. That incomparable self-realization, atmasiddhi, which is praised by all the Upanishads and which is the supreme good to be sought by all noble aspirants. Brahmavids is the theme of this work. Chapter number 1, Instruction, Upadesha. This is in the form of questions and answers. Devotees put questions to Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi and he replies. First question. What are the marks of a real teacher, Sadguru? Perceptor. Steady abidance in the self, looking at all with an equal eye, unshakable courage at all times, in all places and circumstances, etc. Second question. What are the marks of an earnest disciple, Sadshishya? Maharshi replies. An intense longing for the removal of sorrow and attainment of joy, and an intense aversion for all kinds of mundane pleasure. Third question. What are the characteristics of instruction, Upadesha? Maharshi replies. The word Upadesha means near the place or seat. Upa means near, Desa means place or seat. The Guru, who is the embodiment of that which is indicated by the terms Sat, Chit, and Ananda, that is, existence, consciousness, and bliss, prevents the disciple who, on account of his acceptance of the forms of the objects of the senses, has swerved from his true state and is consequently distressed and buffeted by joys and sorrows from continuing so, and establishes him in his own real nature without differentiation. Upadesa also means showing a distant object quite near. It is brought home to the disciple that the Brahma, which he believes to be distant and different from himself, is near and not different from himself. Question number 4. If it be true that the Guru is one's own self, Atma, what is the principle underlying the doctrine which says that however learned a disciple may be, or whatever occult powers he may possess, he cannot attain self realization, atmasiddhi, without the grace of the Guru? Maharshi replies, although in absolute truth the state of the Guru is that of oneself, it is very hard for the self, which has become the individual soul, jiva, through ignorance, to realize its true state or nature without the grace of the Guru. All mental concepts are controlled by the mere presence of the real Guru. If he were to say to one who arrogantly claims that he has seen the further shore of the ocean of learning, or one who claims arrogantly that he can perform deeds which are well nigh impossible. Yes, you learned all that is to be learnt, but have you learned to know yourself? And you who are capable of performing deeds which are almost impossible, have you seen yourself? They will bow their heads in shame and remain silent. Thus it is evident that only by the grace of the Guru and by no other accomplishment is it possible to know oneself. Question number 5. What are the marks of the Guru's grace? Maharshi replies, it is beyond words or thoughts. Question 6. If that is so, how is it that it is said that the disciple realizes his true state by the Guru's grace? Maharshi replies, it is like the elephant which wakes up on seeing a lion in its dream. Even as the elephant wakes up at the mere sight of the lion, so too is it certain that the disciple wakes up from the sleep of ignorance into the wakefulness of true knowledge through the Guru's benevolent look of grace. Question number 7. What is the significance of the saying that the nature of the real Guru is that of the Supreme Lord, Sarve Sarva, Brahma, God? Maharshi replies, in the case of the individual soul which desires to attain the state of true knowledge or the state of Godhood, Isvara, and with that object always practices devotion. When the individual devotion has reached a mature stage, the Lord, who is the witness of that individual soul and identical with it, comes forth in human form with the help of Sat Chit Ananda. His three natural features and form and name which he also graciously assumes, and in the guise of blessings, the disciple absorbs him in himself. According to this doctrine, the Guru can truly be called the Lord. Question number 8. How then did some great persons attain knowledge without a Guru? Maharshi replies, to a few mature persons, the Lord shines as the light of knowledge and imparts awareness of the truth. Question number 9. What is the end of devotion, bhakti, and the path of Siddhanta? That is Seva Siddhanta. Maharshi replies, it is to learn the truth that all one's actions performed with unselfish devotion with the aid of the three purified instruments, that is body, speech and mind, in the capacity of the servant of the Lord, becomes the Lord's actions, and to stand forth free from the sense of I and mine. This is also the truth of what the Seva Siddhantins call Prabhakti, supreme devotion, or living in the service of God. Irani Pani Nitral, that is Tamil word. Question number 10. What is the end of the path of knowledge, Jnana or Vedanta? Maharshi replies, it is to know the truth that the I is not different from the Lord Ishvara, and to be free from the feelings of being the doer, Kartritva Ahankara. Question number 11. How can it be said that the end of both these paths is the same? Maharshi replies, whatever the means, the destructions of the sense I and mine is the goal, and as these are interdependent, the destructions of either of them causes the destruction of the other. Therefore, in order to achieve that state of silence which is beyond thought and word, either the path of knowledge, which removes the sense of I, or the path of devotion, which removes the sense of mind, will suffice. So there is no doubt that the end of the paths of devotion and knowledge is one and the same. Note: so long as the I exists, it is necessary to accept the Lord also. If anyone wishes to regain easily the supreme state of identity, Sayujya, now lost to him, it is only proper that he should accept this conclusion. Question number 8. What is the mark of the ego? Maharshi replies, the individual soul of the form of I is the ego. The self, which is of the nature of intelligence, Chit, has no sense of I, nor does the insentient body possess a sense of I. The mysterious appearance of a delusive ego between the intelligent and the insentient being the root cause of all these troubles. Upon its destruction by whatever means, that which really exists will be seen as it is. This is called liberation, moksha. Chapter 2, Practice Abhyasa. This is also in the question answer form. Question number 1. What is the method of practice? Maharshi replies, as the self of a person who tries to attain self-realization is not different from him, and as there is nothing other than or superior to him to be attained by him, self-realization being only the realization of one's own nature, The seeker of liberation realizes without doubts or misconceptions his real nature by distinguishing the eternal from the transient and never swerves from his natural state. This is known as the practice of knowledge. This is the inquiry leading to self realization. Question number 2. Can this path of inquiry be followed by all aspirants? Maharshi replies, this is suitable only for the ripe souls. The rest should follow different methods according to the state of their minds. See, ripe soul means those whose mind minds are pure, they have very less desires, and they have no trace of greed, jealousy, enmity, and like that. Means pure souls, and who meditates easily. So they are ripe souls, they are ready for the grace of Guru and God. Question number 3. What are the other methods? Maharshi replies, they are number 1 stuti, number 2 japa, number 3 dhyana, number 4 yoga, number 5 jnana, etc. Now, stuti is singing the praises of the Lord with a great feeling of devotion. Japa is uttering the names of the gods or sacred mantras like Om, either mentally or verbally. While following the methods of stuti and japa, the mind will sometimes be concentrated and sometimes diffused, open. The vagaries of the mind will not be evident to those who follow these methods. Third, dhyana devotes the repetition of the names etc. mentally, japa, with feelings of devotion. In this method, the state of the mind will be understood easily, for the mind does not become concentrated and diffused simultaneously. When one is in dhyana, it does not contact the objects of the senses, and when it is in contact with the object, it is not in dhyana. Therefore, those who are in this state can observe the vagaries of the mind then and there, and by stopping the mind from thinking other thoughts, fix it in dhyana. Perfection in dhyana is the state of abiding in the self, mean abiding in the form of that tat karnilai. As meditation functions in an exceedingly subtle manner at the source of the mind, it is not difficult to perceive its rise and subsidence. Fourth, yoga. The source of the breath is the same as that of the mind, therefore, the subsidence of either leads effortlessly to that of the other. The practice of stilling the mind through breath control pranayama is called yoga. Fixing their minds on psychic centers such as the Sahasrara means the thousand petaled lotus. Yogis remain any length of time without awareness of their bodies. As long as this state continues, they appear to be immersed in some kind of joy. But when the mind, which has become tranquil, emerges, becomes active again, it resumes its worldly thoughts. It is therefore necessary to train it with the help of practices like dhyana. Whenever it becomes externalized, it will then attain a state in which there is neither subsidence nor emergence. Fifth, jnana is the annihilation of the mind in which it is made to assume the form of the self through the constant practice of dhyana or enquiry, vichara. The extinction of the mind is the state in which there is a cessation of all efforts. Those who are established in this state never swerve from their true state. The term silence, mona, and inaction refer to the state alone. Note number 1. All practices are followed only with the object of concentrating the mind, as all the mental activities like remembering, forgetting, desiring, hating, attracting, discarding, etc., are modifications of the mind. They cannot be one's true state. Simple, changeless being is one's true nature. Therefore, to know the truth of one's being and to be it is known as release from bondage and the destruction of the note granthi nasham. Until this state of tranquility of mind is firmly attained, the practice of unswerving abidance in the self and keeping the mind unsoiled by various thoughts is essential for an aspirant. Second, although the practice for achieving strength of mind are numerous, all of them achieve the same end. For it can be seen that whoever concentrates his mind on any object will, on the cessation of all mental concepts, ultimately remain merely as that object. This is called successful meditation, dhyana, siddhi. Those who follow the path of inquiry realize that the mind which remains at the end of the inquiry is Brahma. Those who practice meditation realize that the mind which remains at the end of the meditation is the object of their meditation. As the result is the same in either case, it is the duty of aspirant to practice continuously either of these methods till the goal is reached. Question number 4. Is the state of being still a state involving effort or effortless? Maharshi replies, it is not an effortless state of indolence. All mundane activities which are ordinarily called effort are performed with the aid of a portion of the mind and with frequent breaks. But the act of communion with the self, atma, vyavahara, or remaining still inwardly is intense activity which is performed with the entire mind and without break. Maya, delusion or ignorance which cannot be destroyed by any other act is completely destroyed by this intense activity which is called silence, mona. Question number 5. What is the nature of Maya? Maharshi replies, Maya is that which makes us regard as non-extinct of the self, the reality, which is always and everywhere present, all pervasive and self-luminous, and as existent, the individual soul, jiva, the world, Jagat, and God Para, which have been conclusively proved to be non existent at all times and places. Question number 6. As the self shines fully of its own accord, why is it not generally recognized like the other objects of the world by all persons? Maharshi replies, whenever particular objects are known, it is the self which has known itself in the form of those objects. For what is known as knowledge or awareness is only the patency of the self, Atma Shakti. The self is the only sentient object. There is nothing apart from the self. If there are such objects, they are all insentient and therefore cannot either know themselves or mutually know one another. It is because the self does not know its true nature in this manner that it seems to be immersed and struggling in the ocean of truth, birth and death in the form of the individual soul. Question number 7. Although the Lord is all pervasive, it appears from passages like adorning him through his grace, and he can be known only through his grace. How then can the individual soul by its own effort attain self realization in the absence of the Lord's grace? Maharshi replies, as the Lord denotes the self and as grace means the Lord's presence or revelation, there is no time when the Lord remains unknown. If the light of the sun is invisible to the owl, it is only the fault of that bird and not of the sun. Similarly, can the unawareness by ignorant persons of the self, which is always of the nature of awareness, be other than their own fault? How can it be the fault of the self? It is because grace is of the very nature of the Lord that he is well known as the blessed grace. Therefore, the Lord, whose nature itself is grace, does not have to bestow his grace, nor is there any particular time for bestowing his grace. Question number 8. What part of the body is the abode of the self? The heart on the right side of the Maharshi replies. The heart on the right side of the chest is generally indicated. This is because we usually point to the right side of the chest when we refer to ourselves. Some say that the Sahasrara, the thousand petaled lotus, is the abode of the self. But if that were true, the head should not fall forward when we go to sleep or faint. Question number 9. What is the nature of the heart? Maharshi replies, the sacred text described it say, between the two nipples, below the chest and above the abdomen, there are 6 organs of different colors, one of them resembling the bud of water lily and situated 2 digits to the right is the heart. It is inverted and within it is a tiny orifice which is the seat of dense darkness, ignorance, full of desires. All of the psychic nerve nadis depend upon it. It is the abode of the vital forces, the mind, and the light of consciousness. But although it is described thus, the meaning of the word heart, herdem, is the self atma, as it is denoted by the terms existence, consciousness, bliss, eternal, and planam, satyachit, anandam, nityam, purnam. It has no difference such as exterior and interior or up and down. That tranquil state in which all thoughts come to an end is called the state of the self. When it is realized as it is, there is no scope for discussion about its location inside the body or outside. Question number 10. Why do thoughts of many objects arise in the mind even when there is no contact with external objects? Maharshi replies, all such thoughts are due to latent tendencies, purva, sanskaras, vasanas. They appear only to the individual consciousness jiva which has forgotten its real nature and become externalized. Whenever particular things are perceived, the inquiry who is it that sees them should be made. They will then disappear at once. Question number 11. How do the triple factors, that is, knower, known, and knowledge, which are absent in deep sleep, samadhi, etc., manifest themselves in the self in the states of waking and dreaming? From the self, there arise in succession: number 1, Chidabhasha, reflected consciousness, which is a kind of luminosity. Number 2, jiva, the individual consciousness or the seer or the first concept. Number 3, phenomena, that is the world. Question number 12. Since the self is free from the notions of knowledge and ignorance, how can it be said to pervade the entire body in the shape of sentience or to impart sentience to the senses? Wise men say that there is a connection between the source of the various psychic nerves and the self, that this is the note of the heart, that the connection between the sentient and the insentient will exist until this is cut asunder with the aid of true knowledge, that just as the subtle and invisible forces of electricity travels through wires and does many wonderful things, so the force of the self also travels through the psychic nerves and pervading the entire body imparts sentience to the senses, and that if this knot is cut, the self will remain as it always is without any attributes. Question number 13. How can there be a connection between the self, which is pure knowledge, and the triple factors, which are relative knowledge? This is in a way like the working of a cinema as shown below. Cinema show. First, the lamp inside the apparatus. Self. Number 1. The self. Cinema show. Number 2, the lens in front of the lamp. Self. Number 2, the pure sattvic mind close to the self. Cinema show. Third, the film, which is a long series of separate photos. Self. Third, the stream of latent tendencies consisting of subtle thoughts. Cinema show. Fourth, the lens, the light passing through it, and the lamp, which together form the focused light. Fourth, self. The mind, the illumination of it, and the self, which together form the seer or the jiva. Cinema show. Fifth part, the light passing through the lens and falling on the screen. Self. Fifth, the light of the self emerging from the mind through the senses and falling on the world. Cinema show. Sixth, the various kinds of pictures appearing in the light of the screen. The self. Sixth part, the various forms and names appearing as the objects perceived in the light of the world. Lamp. Seventh part, the mechanism which sets the film in motion. The self. Seventh part, the divine law manifesting the latent tendencies of the mind. Just as the pictures appear on the screen as long as the film throws the shadow through the lens, so the phenomenal world will continue to appear to the individual in the waking and dream states as long as there are latent mental impressions. Just as the lens many magnifies the tiny specks on the film of a huge size, and as a number of pictures are shown in a second, so the mind enlarges the sprout like tendencies into tree like thoughts and shows in a second innumerable worlds. Again, just as there is only the light of the lamp visible when there is no film, so the self alone shines without the triple factors. When the mental concepts in the form of tendencies are absent in the states of deep sleep, swoon, and samadhi, just as the lamp illumines the lens, etc., while remaining unaffected, the self illumines the ego, chidabhasa, etc., while remaining unaffected. Question number 14. What is the dhyana meditation? Maharshi replies, it is abiding as one's self without swerving in any way from one's real nature and without feeling that one is meditating, as one is not in the least conscious of the different states, waking, dreaming, etc. In this condition, the sleep noticeable here is also regarded as dhyana. Question number 15. What is the difference between dhyana and samadhi? Maharshi replies, dhyana is achieved through deliberate mental effort. In samadhi, there is no such effort. Question number 16. What are the factors to be kept in view in dhyana? Maharshi replies, it is important for one who is established in his self atmanistha to see that he does not swerve in the least from this absorption. By swerving from his true nature, he may see before him bright effulgences, etc., or hear unusual sounds or regard as real then visions of gods appearing within or without himself. He should not be deceived by these, forget himself. Note if number one, if the moments that are wasted in thinking of the objects which are not the self are spent on inquiry into the self realization will be attained in a very short time. Number two, until the mind becomes established in itself, some kind of a bhavana, contemplation of a personified God or goddess with deep emotion and religious feelings is essential. Otherwise, the mind will be frequently assailed by wayward thoughts or sleep. Third, without spending all the time in practicing bhavana like I am Shiva or I am Brahma, which are regarded as nirguna upasana, contemplation of the attributeless Brahma, the method of inquiry into oneself should be practiced as soon as the mental strength which is result of such upasana contemplation is attained. Fifth, the excellence of the practice sadhana lies in not giving room for even a single mental concept virati. Question number 17. What are the rules of conduct which an aspirant sadhaka should follow? Maharshi replies, moderation in food, moderation in sleep, and moderation in speech. Question number 18. How long should one practice? Maharshi replies, until the mind attains effortlessly its natural state of freedom from concepts, that is, till the sense of I and mine exists no longer. Question number 19. What is the meaning of dwelling in solitude? Ekanta vasa. Maharshi replies, as the self is all pervasive, it has no particular place for solitude. The state of being free from mental concepts is called dwelling in solitude. Question number 20. What is the sign of wisdom? Viveka. Maharshi replies, its beauty lies in remaining free from delusion after realizing the truth once. There is fear only for one who sees at least a slight difference in the Supreme Brahma. So long as there is the idea that the body in the self alone can be realizer of truth or whoever he might be. Question number 21. If everything happens according to karma, prarabdha, the result of one's acts in the past, how is it one to overcome the obstacles to meditation? Dhyana. Maharshi replies, prarabdha concerns only the outturned, not the interned mind. One who seeks his real self will not be afraid of any obstacle. Question number 22. Is asceticism, sannyasa, one of the essential requisites for a person to become established in the self? Atma Nishta. Maharshi replies, the effort that is made to get rid of attachment to one's body is really towards abiding in the self. Maturity of thought and inquiry alone removes attachment to the body, not the stations of life, asramas such as student, brahmachari, etc. For the attachment is in the mind, while the stations pertain to the body. How can bodily stations remove the attachment in the mind? As maturity of thought and inquiry pertain to the mind, these alone can, by inquiry on the part of the same mind, remove the attachment which have crept into it through thoughtlessness. But as the discipline of asceticism, sannyasa asrama is the means for attaining dispassion, vairagya, and as dispassion is the means for inquiry, joining an order of asceticism may be regarded in a way as a means of inquiry through dispassion. Instead of wasting one's life by entering the order of ascetics before one is fit for it, it is better to live in the householder's life in order to fix the mind in the self, which is its true nature. It is necessary to separate it from the family of fancies, sankalpas, and doubts, vikalpas, that is, to renounce the family sansara in the mind. This is the real asceticism. Question number 23. It is an established rule that so long as there is the least idea of I am the doer, self knowledge cannot be attained. But is it possible for an aspirant who is a householder to discharge his duties properly without this sense? Maharshi replies, as there is no rule that action should depend upon a sense of being the doer, it is unnecessary to doubt whether any action will take place without a doer or an act of doing. Although the officer of a government treasury may appear in the eyes of others to be doing his duty attentively and responsibly all day long, he will be discharging his duty without attachment, thinking, I have no real connection with all this money, and without a sense of involvement in his mind. In the same manner, a wise householder may also discharge without attachment the various household duties which falls to his lot according to his past karma. Like a tool in the hands of another, actions and knowledge are not obstacles to each other. Question number 24. Of what use to his family is a wise householder who is unmindful, unmindful of his bodily comforts, and of what use is his family to him? Maharshi replies, although he is entirely unmindful of his bodily comforts, if owing to his past karma his family have to subsist by his efforts, he may be regarded as doing service to others. If it is asked whether the wise man derives any benefit from the discharge of domestic duties, it may be answered that as he has already attained the state of complete satisfaction, which is the sum total of all benefits and the highest good of all, he does not stand to gain anything more by discharging family duties. Question number 25. How can cessation of activity, nivritti, and peace of mind be attained in the minds of household duty, which are of the nature of constant activity? Maharshi replies, as the activities of the wise man exist only in the eyes of others and not in his own, although he may be accomplishing immense tasks, he really does nothing. Therefore, his activities do not stand in the way of inaction and peace of mind, for he knows the truth that all activities take place in his mere presence and that he does nothing. Hence, he will remain as the silent witness of all the activities taking place. Question number 26. As the sage's past karma is the cause of his present activities, will not the impressions vasanas caused by his present activities adhere to him in future? Maharshi replies, only one who is free from all the latent tendencies vasanas is a sage. That being so, how can the tendencies of karma affect him who is entirely unattached to activities? Question number 7. What is the meaning of brahmacharya? Maharshi replies, only inquiry into Brahma should be called brahmacharya. Question number 28. Will the practice of brahmacharya, which is followed in conformity with the four orders of life, ashramas, be a means of knowledge? Maharshi replies, as the various means of knowledge, such as control of senses, etc., are included in brahmacharya, the virtuous practices duly followed by those who belong to the order of students, brahmacharis, are very helpful for their improvement. Question number 29. Can one enter the order of ascetics, sannyasa, directly from the order of students, brahmacharya? Maharshi, those who are competent need not formally enter the order of brahmacharya, etc., in the order laid down. One who has realized his self does not distinguish between the various orders of life. Therefore, no order of life either helps or hinder him. Ma- Question number 30. Does an aspirant sadhaka lose anything by not observing the rules of caste and orders of life? Mercy replied, as the attainment anusthana literature, that is meaning practice of knowledge, is the supreme end of all other practices. There is no rule that one who remains in any one order of life and constantly acquires knowledge is bound to follow the rules laid down for that order of life. If he follows the rules of caste and orders of life, he does so for the good of the world. He does not derive any benefit by observing the rules, nor does he lose anything by not observing them.